So, my name is Ayati Dashkar. I'm the founder of the Queendom Metaverse. And the Queendom Metaverse basically uses creativity and technology to bring these two together as powerful catalysts of change, to build virtual worlds and challenge traditional norms and expectations from young girls to pursue careers in STEM. And in the new age of intelligence, where everyone is focusing on AI, we need to be focusing on its biases, how it is changing the world around us. And this is the perfect time to talk about inclusion and accelerating inclusion and closing the digital divide. Because girls talk is about boys and makeup, right? No, it's not our hair, it's our hypothesis. It's not just our looks, it's our logic. It's not just our ideas, it's our investigation. And because of that, we need to accelerate inclusion and bring girls to the table, because a few minutes away from us, global leaders have gathered to discuss our role in shaping the age of intelligence. But girls are not at those tables. And to bridge that digital divide, I want to introduce the next panel, moderated by Ms. Kasia Denbeck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What energy, what an event. It's an amazing day. I'm actually hoping to, not lose my voice during the next 2 days. We don't want to lose female voice. We're going to talk about digital inclusion, and I have amazing guests talking with me about that particular topic. I would like to invite Loli Gaitan, Program Officer, Digital Inclusion Service, International Telecommunication Union. Hello, Loli. Yes. Charlotte West from Lenovo Foundation. Thank you. Hello, Charlotte. Stephanie zu Gutenberg, Digital Education Activist from Germany. Hello. And last but not least, Reshma Ramachandran, Chief Transformation Officer and UPCO. Am I pronouncing it right? That's right. Okay, UPCO, which if you don't know, UPCO is Europe's largest urban mobility provider, and also Reshma is advisory member of World Woman Foundation. What a crowd! Thank you very much. We've talked quite a lot about digital transformation today. We talked how technology can help build a more equal society. With that, we decided at some point. I really liked somebody's statement that there is nothing bad in technology in itself. There is nothing bad and nothing good. The most important thing is how we actually use technology. We know very well that we are in a very special point in history, really, because the generative AI transformation is changing everything. It's changing businesses and it's changing everyday lives. And it's really important for women, for us, not to be excluded from it, so that our perspective is also reflected in how AI develops. So what I would like to start with maybe is a kind of a diagnostic, where I would like to ask Loli for that. And can you tell me, where are we at really when it comes to digital inclusion or equality in access to technology? It should be working, the mic.
Thank you so much, Kasia, and thank you so much to everyone for being here this afternoon. So let me start with one number, 160 years. So for those of you that are not familiar with the International Telecommunication Union, we've been connecting the unconnected and connecting technology with people for 160 years. Just 2 years ago, we had the first women after 160 years to take the leadership of the organization. So we really have good role models there. And I'm telling you this because I would say that the beauty of IITU as a UN agency on information communication in technologies is that we work not only with member states, we don't work with the governments only. We had 194 governments part of us. The latest one is Palau. But also we work with the private sector, with the civil society represented by NGOs, and with the academia. So we have now more than 1,000 members. But what is really critical is that ITU is providing this space in where we are advancing knowledge on digital transformation. We are also leveraging resources of the different members of ITU. They are exchanging best practices, they are exchanging expertise. And with that, something that we are very good at is to get numbers. So we track and we monitor the status of the connectivity at the regional level, but also at the global level. Let me just very quick to answer to your question. Let's go all together to this travel on meaningful connectivity around the world. Let me start with Africa. Africa, it's unfortunately the region that is lagging behind in terms of internet penetration. Only 30% of the population is connected. And also in terms of the gender digital divide. So they are the ones that are most critical in terms of this, on bridging this gap. If we go now on the, for example, the Asia and the Pacific, this is a very interesting region because we have countries that have very high level of penetration with almost 70%, but then there are some sub-regions such as Southeast Asia in where we see that many countries are still behind, so with 30 to 40% of penetration. And women in those countries in Southeast Asia are 41% less likely than men to use the mobile internet even. Now if we move to the third region, the Arab states, the internet penetration there is very good, it's 70%, so they're well. However, the region faces still the gender gap. So there is a 13% gender gap in this case. And if we go to Latin America and the Caribbean, this region has been going very well in terms of internet penetration, with the 78% population connected. However, each region has different needs and different priorities. And in terms of digital inclusion in Latin America and the Caribbean, for example, we see that the vulnerable population are especially in the rural area. So these areas are the ones that are lagging behind. And in particular, the indigenous population. And last but not least, so Europe and Central Asia, they are boasting basically the internet connectivity. There is 89% of population in Europe connected with the internet. But again, not all regions are perfect, so in terms of also priorities and needs, in the European region, there is the rural areas, but also the older population. So with this, just very quickly to resume, the ITU, when we think about digital inclusion, we work with 5 groups. We work with women and girls, youth, indigenous communities and rural communities, older people, and people with disabilities. So we try to target, all our actions are according and tailored for these groups, vulnerable groups. And with that, we see that there are 3 main elements as prerequisite of digital inclusion. The first one, the access to the internet, the access to broadband. The second one, the affordability of the internet, the affordability of the equipment. And the third one, but not less important, is the accessibility. So we want that, for example, our phones can be used for a visually impaired person, by a person in a remote area, but by an older woman. So this is the principle where we work at ITU and digital inclusion, to have as a cornerstone the ICT accessibility. Thank you. And I think
yeah, so we do know there is inequality in access, but just the access to the internet is not enough today. You have to have skills to be able to use it, right? Charlotte West, how do you actually make sure that people have equal access to upskilling, to getting to know how to use the new technology?
Yeah, so just for context, I will come at this from a business angle and from a philanthropy angle. So my job is 2 halves. I head up comms at Lenovo. I'm pleased to see the tech team on the side there using ThinkPads, which are our product. So thank you very much. But I also am a board director on the Lenovo Foundation. So I think it's, we all come at it from different perspectives on this panel, government, institutions, academia, etc. So I think that it's easy for a business to look at how it's transforming, and think that it needs to bring lots of new people into an organisation. You know, there's many organisations that will be looking now and saying we need young people, we need new talent, you know, AI first generation, you know, to come into our workforce. But there are many, many, many people in those organisations already who need and want their skills to be improved and upgraded is not quite the right word, but I can't think of what the word is. But they want to accelerate. They don't want to stagnate and be left behind. There was a stat from the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report that said 63% of businesses are worried about the skills gap in terms of how it will hinder their own transformation as organisations. So I think businesses have a responsibility to train their own workforces, regardless of what their levels or ages are. So that firstly. And I think looking at it from the philanthropy side, we have a responsibility as a technology organisation to pass our skills on as well. So we've done quite a lot of work with very small NGOs around the world, engaging with them, and you know, we're running a series of webinars essentially on AI for social impact, helping them think about, you know, a 10-person NGO organisation that could use AI to really help it scale its business and maybe compete with some of the bigger organisations. And actually they're the ones that are being creative and innovative with how they use things. So I think it's a responsibility on us as well. And I would say as one thing as well is for those in the room, we do run a grant programme every year called Transform Me, which is specifically about upskilling. So keep an eye out for that, because you're all very welcome where it's appropriate to apply.
So upskilling is one thing, but also I think that gap kind of starts very early on in life, right? Stephanie, you specialize in education programs, and when do we start to try and bridge that gap so that it doesn't exist, or that it doesn't, you know, come to existence?
Well, obviously we have to start quite early, and I like to make one very important point, because we're hearing all the, you know, the discussions around you keep your kids away from the phones and phone-free schools and all of it. That is right, because we want to create a distraction-free environment for learning. But that, of course, doesn't mean that we are not responsible for teaching them exactly what is on all these devices. And AI is just going to propel and excel every problem that we have now. AI is just going to like go into a magnitude of that. What I see, and what the science also behind it says, that you have to start educating children early on, age appropriate, especially for the content of the device. So we have, and that obviously it depends on where you look in the world. You have the access problems in some parts of the world. Then, for example, you look at the German-speaking markets, where I'm more of an expert. Up until before COVID, 30% of the schools had, 36% of the schools in Germany had access to Wi-Fi. I mean, this Germany we're talking about, right? Okay, now they've sort of amped up the game a little bit, but what is still not happening, and what I'm specializing a lot in, is trying to get in schools, in you know, working with small NGOs, even in foundations, with those who can actually provide what is missing. Because school systems, mostly all over the world, has a changing rate like the Vatican, you know? So the educational system. But we don't have that kind of time very often. And we need to act now, and those people who can bring the information and the good education in schools are out there. It's just our responsibility to sort of collect them. That's what I'm doing and what we're doing as a group as well, and bring them into schools where it is needed. And that's a generational responsibility, I'd say. You know, we all have. It's not enough to pinpoint the responsible people who are not doing what they should do. Fact is, it's just not happening. It's on us to not fail, honestly, fail the younger generation, because that's what I've heard. I've worked with a lot of young kids and young people, and I've heard more often that said, honestly, where were you? Where are you when we have the questions? Where are you when I have a question about legal components in the media, when no one is teaching them that? And yes, some of the private schools are doing that better, but obviously we all know most people don't have access to private schools. So our responsibility is to bring it to those who don't have access to the content education. And that's, you know, what I'm specializing in.
Reshma, can you tell me, because of course, let's say we have great education, right? But we all know that in a strip we kind of tend to think in a stereotypical way of, oh, girls, you know, they are good at languages, maybe relation building, and boys are excel at STEM, and that's what they should do. And I think this stereotype is kind of, you know, propelled within the educational system very early on, and we kind of all, you know, internalize it and start to believe it. How do you encourage women to stop thinking that way? How do you encourage them to, you know, join STEM faculties? How do you do that?
It's a great question, and I think all the conversations that we have been having here since morning has touched upon this in some way or the other in terms of stereotypes and the biases and how biases get propagated. And I just want to say a personal story on this, and some of you who have heard me talk in other forums have heard it, so pardon the repetition. You know, the personal story is my own. And just to answer the question, how do I encourage girls and young women to get into STEM itself? You know, when I was 16 years old, I had the opportunity to do English literature, which was my first love. I come from India, so it's so some of you who know the Indian competitive education system know how difficult it is to get into engineering because it's highly competitive. And I had an engineering seat at a college that's one of the premier institutes in the world. And I'm glad I made the choice, and it was family pressure, society pressure, and I'm happy that I succumbed to that pressure and took engineering and not English literature, simply because STEM careers offers you the power of the purse. So we have spoken about money since morning. Money is power. And you know, a career in STEM offers that money. And again, I talk about 25 years back, had I taken English literature, my career opportunities were very limited. Most likely, my mom is a teacher, my sister is a teacher, most likely, and no offense to the profession at all, I'm extremely proud of that profession because I'm who I am because my mom was a teacher, but nonetheless, that was my career. And today, just because I made a choice when I was 16 to go into engineering, I sit where I am today. And that's one of the things that I actually talk to young girls about, the power of the purse. Do not forget the money. And the second part, you know, the world and the era that we live in, I truly, truly believe that no matter what you study, we talk about STEM careers, and I probably think it's about 5 years from now when we stop talking about STEM careers, because no matter what we study, and just take design as an example, designers, you know, early people who used to sketch, this is not a STEM career, this is very creative. Canva is a digital platform. Most designers are on Canva today. So technology is not going to be separate from anything that we study. So how I encourage, and I'm sorry I didn't get to the question, you know, I work for multiple organizations. I have a day job, and then I serve on boards of 2 companies, and I do senior advisory roles. And independent of organization as a platform, what I like to do with young girls is to actually say, you know, technology is not separate from your creative side. Be proud of your creative side. This is our feminine power. Don't give that away. That's a power that we hold. But do not say that technology is separate from creativity. It's one and the same.
Yeah, definitely. Even the teachers, you mentioned teachers in your family, teachers without IT competences cannot teach children today because they will not have a common language, right? Would you like to build on that?
That's, for example, what we're doing as well. We're, because the teachers, if they don't have proper education, you don't have to go anywhere, right? So the teacher education is very, very important. That's what we're doing. We're trying to teach teachers about AI, and many of them want to. It's just often they don't have access to it, and especially if they're stuck in very, very conservative old structures. You know, it's very hard. So it needs people like today in the room, all of us, you know, to push wherever we can for exactly for that to happen, because that is the access we need to guarantee for the kids in the end, right?
Charlotte, so what are, we talked about, you know, those skills, you know, mixing and not separating creativity from IT knowledge, but what are some of the critical skills, women and men, but we're talking about 2 women specifically today, that we should focus on? What is something we need to all learn?
I think it's really easy to start with saying, well, we all need new, different hard skills that helps us understand AI better. Of course, we all need to embrace technology and understand it regardless of our job. I'm in a marketing organisation. We use more technology than many of the functional teams in our organisation because we can see the efficiencies that it can help bring to the work that we do. Same with our legal organisation. They've managed to improve the way that they do contracts, which is the bane of their life, by technology efficiency. So I think no matter the function, team, department you're in, those hard skills matter. You don't have to be the expert, but you have to understand it enough to make sure that you bring in the right people around you to help. That said, I think, again, and if you look at some of the World Economic Forum Future Jobs report, the soft skills will be just as important, if not more important, in the future. And without doing a massive stereotyping, which I'm clearly about to do, perhaps the majority of this room are better on that than the people that aren't in this room right now. The EQ will be as important as the IQ, and maybe even more so. As much as technology can do, it doesn't have the same level of empathy, ability to lead, all of those things. So in a way, we need to heighten those skills and work on those even harder than we do just the hard skills.
Well, of course, all the practical examples and true stories really appeal to us most. So I wanted to ask you, Lolly, about some practical programs that actually work best. What kind of programs, what kind of solutions bring the best results when it comes to building that digital inclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I advanced a little bit in my first intervention, but multi-stakeholder and collaboration is key. But multi-stakeholder not only with an angle, like with the government or the public policy making angle or the advocacy angle. We need to have also the community involved in the co-creation of these educational programs. So just 3 years ago, we had a very successful initiative that is called Equals Her Digital Skills. So 4 organizations, 4 women representing each organization, and maybe some of the organizations are here. It's GSMA, Ernst & Young, and Women World Wide Web, and IITU, of course. So we get together and we co-create this program. It's a really learning path in which each of the partner was providing some in-kind or some financial contributions in order to give young girls from 18 to 25 years old the opportunity to educate themselves with digital skills. But the journey doesn't finish there. No, we just not give only the digital skills and that's it. We need also to empower them and to make them see other senior women working in the technology sector. So it's in that moment in where we created this pathway in where we have workshops for the girls, which are localized, because we need to consider, as I mentioned it before, in the regional approach, each of the region's needs. Then we have this self-learning pathway, which are some badges or certifications that they got into training of digital skills. And the last but not least step is the e-mentoring program, in where we connect these young girls with senior women from different organizations that are coming basically from private sector. So that's the way we can kind of incorporate this angle. And just now, we are doing, especially with Ernst & Young, this program on AI skills for girls. Because we realize that, of course, with emerging technologies, we need to provide, and we need to especially demystify the artificial intelligence. Already some girls are very scared to go into ICTs and digital skills. So when they see artificial intelligence, they just run. So we are trying with EY to give this good flavor on why artificial intelligence skills are important. Not only if they want to become ICT engineers or in the STEM careers, but also in any sector of the economy, in any sector. We had projects before with women in the textiles and apparel sector, in the fashion industry, in where we were providing these cross-cutting digital skills. So it's not always to focus in the STEM career, but also try to democratize the digital skills in other productive sectors.
So the key to good results is cooperation, right? Reshma, I know you are very keen on encouraging women, not just for the money, I'm pretty sure, to join STEM faculties and to develop their careers in this industry. But how do you create this cooperation? How do you make businesses and schools work together?
So, I think one of the panelists earlier mentioned this. We put a lot of focus, and we put a lot of also expectations on the organizations. I believe organizations come last in the hierarchy when we look at the vertical hierarchy. First is the home, second is the society, and third is the organization. And to the question that you have just asked in terms of collaboration, this ecosystem needs to come together. What starts at home? What starts at society, because society is a reflection of home, and then comes the organization, which then becomes a reflection of the society. So in terms of what I personally do, I've always used organizations as a platform. So I used to head engineering at ABB, and one of the things that dramatically changed our hiring, just to give an example, was for those of you who speak German, I'm not fluent in that. You have, for the same profession, you have two different genders when you advertise the jobs. You have engineer and engineerin. Yeah. So a small change like that dramatically changed the pipeline. Because when you put something out there like that, when you say doctor and not doctorin, it's a subconscious mind that works. So this is one part of what organizations can do. And I also want to give an example from home. I do not have a daughter, I have a son. And I know my parents are watching this virtually. So I have to give a big applause to them for growing me up as an ambitious woman. And I'm sure all of you in this room, you have good parents who grew you up as ambitious women. Ambitious women are not enough. We need men who can accept ambitious women. I have an amazing husband. I have an amazing husband who accepts my ambition, who's not threatened by it, who's completely comfortable with it. And I have to say, I used to always think I wanted a daughter who I want to grow up like me. Ambitious, who's a go-getter, strong-minded, strong-willed, who can go get everything. And I've changed that narrative. I want a son who accepts an ambitious girl. And that's what is happening in my home. And this is the way we change society. We need more men. And again, here, we were just having, and many of us have had this side conversation. Why don't we have more men in this room? We need that representation. That happens at home. So to come back to the question in terms of collaboration, I do strongly believe in being on 4 organizations, and I know my colleagues from one of the organizations is here. My ex-colleagues from another organization is here. So with that, I say, we put a lot of responsibility in organizations. We should definitely, we shouldn't take the responsibility away from organizations. However, what is in our power is our home. We have to change the narrative at home. That changes the narrative in the society. Then, these men my son walks into an organization, and there was a lady who said this at the one of the panels where she was doing the women health, and her son is now sponsoring the women's football team in South Africa. This is what happens. You change your home, society changes. We don't have to have these conversations for the organizations.
Definitely, I applaud that, especially as a mother of a 9-year-old. I'm pretty sure your son, because children learn by watching, not by what they're told. They're learned by example. So I'm pretty sure that if a boy sees an influential, strong woman, he will accept that in the future. But of course, there's a lot to change. And Stefanie, I wanted to ask you, maybe let's make our dreams come true today. If you could launch just one program, a global program to enhance digital equality, what would that be? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, that's a very. I think I'm losing my voice. No,
we cannot have that.
That's a very, very. It's not an easy question because we have such different challenges in so many countries of the world. But my wish would definitely be, and it's, as you said, it's on us to start changing that at home. This is our responsibility. I think never before we had so much responsibility back to ourselves, because otherwise this change, this massive transition is never going to happen. And one of the future skills, if you look at, is collaboration. And collaboration is what we definitely need. That's what we also going to have to teach in the soft skills to the young kids. They need to be able to collaborate because none of those problems are going to be solvable alone. And if I just look at where I'm coming from, I would love for, and I have an entire idea about that, but it would take too long, for the people who don't have access to have access, but then I want them to go to schools where they actually learn reading and math in a proper way. By the way, those numbers are declining in the Western countries as well, which is not a good sign. We're talking just reading and math, and just regular ones, and where the digital, all the digital is just the tool. It is a tool, a very powerful tool, okay? But it's just a tool. But as with any tool, you need to have someone who instructs you how to use it. And I want that. And the STEM, and we all know the big thing is we need people from these areas all the way. That needs to be a massive focus with the social skills, and of course also as how to remain human in all of this, right? We need to still find a balance. We need to find a balance of who we are, how we are healthy and happy, because then we can be successful.
Definitely. Are you, Charlotte, are you as representative of the business perspective, are you optimistic or pessimistic about what AI can bring us in terms of change in equality?
I'm optimistic. And you might say, well, of course I'd say that, I'm in a technology company. But somebody's, I think it was, I can't remember who said it at the beginning of this panel, but I've met loads of different companies here that are in banking, that are in manufacturing of bricks for, industrial buildings, all sorts. Everybody needs it to improve and transform their businesses. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's not just the privilege of technology companies. So I think in that sense, I'm hugely optimistic. I think it's exciting, and I think a lot will change, and it'll probably be painful for a little bit, and then it will all level out. Like anything, if you think back to when, not everybody in this room is probably old enough, but when the internet first came out and people were like, well, I'll never use that. That will never be in my home. It was ridiculous. So it's a cycle of history that we go through these transformations. They can be a bit painful. But just on the what if I could dream, I don't have a program in mind, but I guess it's a call to arms to ask people, organizations, institutions, NGOs, etc., to be selfless rather than selfish. I think a starting point is always, particularly on the business side, is what can we get out of this? If we own this, if we do this, what can we get out of it? And we won't drive change unless we work together. So to your collaboration point.
Okay, collaboration is key then. I think during our meeting before the panel, we also talked about the mobile revolution, how it actually made access to technology more equal to people in the places where they could never have, modern banking or modern services. So it can help. Just how do we make sure that it's equally spread, right? Lolly, just one last question to you. Do you have an initiative that you would like to see developed?
To be honest, I have many initiatives in my mind that I would like to see a reality, but just thinking about this forum as well, I really would have this call to action to everyone, in particular practitioners and NGOs that are working at the grassroots level, but also the private sector in particular, to be more inclusive. So I know we are centric, our discussions are centric in the future of the youth and the young girls and the women. But let's think about also the women that are getting into aging, the older women. Let's think about the women with disabilities, the visually impaired. I would love to see maybe next year this room with more of these women representing these specific intersectionalities. So this is just like food for thought, and that would be an initiative that I would like to consider.
That's a great initiative. I'm sorry, I'm afraid we need to wrap up our conversation. To my excuse, I must say that our timer crashed for a moment, so I didn't realize that we're plus 4 minutes. But to wrap it up, I think the conclusion to our conversation is we need to collaborate across sectors, right? Not just stay in our bubble. And most of all, we have to make sure that at home we also teach our sons and our daughters that technology can be good, can be useful, and it's power as well. Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you.